of Scotland do we actually want to live in? That's the fundamental question which gets lost in that debate.
What I really would like to see is radical change in this country and elsewhere, and I think the problems that Scotland has are the same problems that people have elsewhere. It isn't about being, as it were, oppressed by another people, the English, right? It's about bad government. It's about government doesn't work, but government doesn't represent the people and doesn't do the two things that I think are most important in government, which is look out for justice and sustainability.
One of the reasons that we're in the position we're in as a country is because there is no written constitution in the UK, and therefore what we have and what governs us is not fit for purpose.
I'm not a nationalist. Why am I interested in independence? For this reason. I want a more equal society. I'm an egalitarian. I think it's wrong that I know some people who earn under £5,000 a year, live in a damn flat, never go on holiday. Others get £100,000 a year in luxury, 2 or 3 holidays a year abroad. I think that's wrong.
I'd love to see a constitution with perhaps what these writers have said at the heart of it. Alistair Gray's wonderful use of the phrase, work as if you're in the early days of a better nation. William McAvaney's we are a mongrel nation. Those sorts of things within the constitution become very important to us, and it's a really interesting thing. I hadn't thought about the constitution before this, so for me this has been a really valuable thing to take from this. That would be such a good place to start talking about what defines us and what we care about. So I'm very pleased to have met you with other people who are talking about these things within the room, and I think we should all go away with that thought. What would the Scottish Constitution be? What should we see in it? How do we define ourselves and our specialness and our particularness and our care and concern for each other more clearly?
Now, I conceive of this country as enormously fertile and enormously full of assets which its people have historically been denied contact with and familiarity with and knowledge of. So I see all the time, to me, shaming paradoxes.
I believe education ought to be free. Damn right it ought to be free. Because if you don't believe in education, you don't believe in your future, and you don't believe in your children's future, and you don't believe in your grandchildren's future. So we all ought to respect and revere education, and if we can make it as accessible and as free as possible, then we ought to do that, and we ought to have a constitution that describes it.
We need a massive shift of resources to early years, and I've now got to the stage where I'm unwilling to run through very many of the reasons for it, because I think you already know. I think it's intuitive. I think politicians already know, and this country has got enough machismo in it that we can hear these things, that we can consign another generation to underachievement in the full knowledge they have no chance, because we will not do the difficult thing of weeding money out of higher education if necessary and putting it into 0 to 3.
I have this word independence, and I have an issue with that. I don't quite understand what we're talking about. I'm a member of something called I'm on the board of the Jimmy Reid Foundation, which met yesterday, and I looked at askance of it because most of my fellow board members are absolutely clear nationalists. But actually, in terms of discussion of nationalism, the independence they want to vote for, I don't think it's going to be on the cards, because how can you be an independent nation if you keep sterling? It seems to be something we're not talking about enough. If you have a foreign nation, define your interest rates, etc., we're in a very, very strange position. I would actually be quite interested in proper nationalism like Norway and having our own currency, but it's not being talked about. I think we need to start teasing things in these things.
In terms of welfare, one of the things I hope that would come out of an independent Scotland is that Scotland wouldn't be just, some people have said in devolution, welfare should remain with Westminster. That's the last thing I want. I believe that basically Scottish people are welfare orientated, but that means that welfare in an independent Scotland, or even in a devolved Scotland, welfare would have to be in the hands of the Scottish Parliament. And I think it would be more just. I think money will be distributed more fairly. And please, don't blame me for Ian Duncan Smith.
Before we move back to the audience, I just want to bring in John Burnside here because, of course, he is, part of Scotland's literary renaissance. I wonder what you're feeling about culture.
Well, I think as long as we have a system of government that we have, the kind of system of government we have here and elsewhere, people are involved in, I think it's called the creative industry. I really like that expression. I'm one of the creative industries, apparently. I think culture is and should be dissident. And I think that's a kind of slightly unique use of the word dissident. But I think writers and artists are often people who are just working against the main political structure of that country. I don't know about whether or not we had different kinds of people in Parliament, whether they were from comprehensives or from public schools. It would matter hugely under the current system, because the current system is dominated by money from outside politics, by lobbyists and by PR people, and by influence. And again, it's the thing that we want to change.
You have to go with it wherever it's going and wherever it gets a response. But the questions were very, very broad, and the contributions from the platform were equally so.
I thought Leslie's point from earlier in the evening that 950 people were picked out of the phone book in Iceland to become party to the conversation about what went in the Constitution. I think that's a really interesting model.
The important thing is that we abandon representative democracy and have direct democracy in this country. If we're going to do something different, let's do something really different.